I understand this discussion is a little unpleasant for you, but it is my duty to prepare you psychologically for all possible outcomes. Now, have you thought of what animal you'd like to be if you end up alone?
Yes, a lobster.
Have you ever caught yourself thinking about the purpose of your existence? Have the mundanities of life suddenly become nothing more than a ticking clock, counting down the minutes until an eventual demise?
All their lives.
To Albert Camus, a French philosopher, this observation is distinctively man recognizing his place in the absurd universe. Absurdism, as a philosophical term, is the contradiction between the realization that life has no purpose, and yet we continue to live it. In Camus' essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, he asserts that suicide is the only true philosophical problem, and that if life is pointless, we must determine whether we should continue it. His conclusion is that the best way to survive in an absurdist world is to rebel against the absurd, while simultaneously embracing it. Thus, he sees hope as insignificant, and suicide as futile. Sisyphus is his ideal hero, a Greek god who is destined to eternally push a boulder up a hill, only to watch it fall down over and over again. Sisyphus is the ideal absurdist hero, as he finds peace in the knowledge that his actions are meaningless. At the end of the essay, Camus suggests that we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Thus, we must take power in our lack of control over our own fate and embrace the chaotic nature of existence. Yorgos Lanthimos' 2015 film The Lobster positions itself directly within the absurd, exploring a world devoid of meaning. In this absurd world, Camus suggests that man's desire for meaning is expressed through logic and reason, yet these things inevitably are futile when we consider how worthless our life really is. In this world, man finds comfort in external or outside forces. In The Lobster, these forces are personified by the worlds of the hotel and the woods. Absurdism begins with a world which we cannot easily define. These are some clips from Samuel Beckett's famous absurdist play, Waiting for Godot. It features a similar backdrop and setting to The Lobster. This is a post-apocalyptic setting full of dark colours, barren landscapes, and a general feeling of claustrophobia. The two main characters are named Vladimir and Estragon, and they don't do much the whole play. In fact, they simply wait for direction from an outside source, failing to act on their own behalf. Their waiting for a figure paradoxically results in their own stagnation, symbolising man in the absurd. Both these dramas share an emphasis on an external environment which seems decaying or devoid of much life. Both pieces are set in nature, but the conditions are far from idyllic. Whilst in The Lobster, the vivid backgrounds of Ireland are a lovingly aesthetic tribute to the countryside, these scenes are isolating and cramped. They contrast distinctively with the smallness of the characters, emphasising the lack of freedom and power these individuals have in a world devoid of hope. I view The Lobster as man's journey in finding meaning and purpose in a similar world, where all around him are signposts which suggest certain ways of living. The character of David is emblematic of all of us who navigate a chaotic world, which positions us in every direction to be defined by labels and boundaries. Where Vladimir and Estragon are metaphorically chained to their isolation due to a refusal to act, in David's case, these chains are literal. The world denies his freedom, physically chaining him to their ideal logos and philosophy. Before continuing my analysis, I would like to recognise the fact that the film's meaning is not easily determined. It is absurd for a reason, and Lanthimos himself has admitted that he has no clear intention of what the film conveys.
There's clues there that you can go either way, and that's what excites me in films that are constructed in this way, that you can then think about it and imagine a bigger world and how it works. And
I'm looking at this film through an absurdist lens.
I don't know where it's coming.
In particular, I want to focus on the character of David and his evolution. I believe that the ending of the film signifies the fact that he is not representative of the ideal absurdist man. Despite his initial desire to rebel against the dystopian world he lives in, he is unable to, due to his own desires and search for meaning. In order to understand this, we have to visualize the world of binaries in which the lobster exists. Life is not black and white. In fact, almost nothing in this world can be singularly categorized. In the lobster, only black and white exist. This world of binaries is a comment on the lack of freedom we have when our direction is informed by outside figures. Similar to the characters of Vladimir and Estragon, the individuals in the lobster are not free, and their choices are confined in the less than idyllic world of the hotel.
11 years and 1 month.
Sexual preference?
Women. However, I had one homosexual experience in the past, in college. Is there a bisexual option available?
No, sir. This option is no longer available since about last summer due to several operational problems. I'm afraid you have to decide right now if you want to be registered as a homosexual or a heterosexual.
Thank you.
Shoe size, please.
44 and a half.
44 or 45. There are no half sizes.
45.
The hotel is a symbol of the dichotomies and binaries which we are forced to define ourselves by in a very terrifying and bizarre world.
I imagine you know that masturbation is not permitted in the rooms or any other area of the hotel.
Yes?
And yet it has been brought to my attention that you continue to do it.
The hotel imposes on its guests a requirement to have a relationship and eventually obtain children. This can be a metaphor for our own eternal fate and demise. When we are aware of our existence, we are thus frantic to extend it through our relationship with others and ultimately the continuation of our genetics through our offspring.
Her name's Elizabeth. Elizabeth, give the nice man a kiss. He's a friend of mine.
The last thing I want right now is a kiss from a silly little girl. Oh. Don't cry, Elizabeth. You should thank me. Now you'll have a limp and be more like your father.
The logos of the hotel is not the only world which exists within sharp binaries. In fact, the world of the woods bears the same fate. It restricts itself in a lack of natural affection and allowing its followers to express love to one another. The same way as in the hotel, in the woods, only binaries exist for men to move around.
By the way, any romantic or sexual relations between loners are not permitted, and any such acts are punished. Is that clear?
Can I have a conversation with someone?
Of course you can. So long as there is no flirting or anything like that. That applies to dance nights as well. We're all dance by ourselves. That's why we only play electronic music.
These binary forms are also revealed in the nature of uniformity in the film. Identical clothing represents utilitarianism and conformity.
Can I sit here?
Of course. Let me introduce you to my best friend.
Satire is used to subtly criticize such a repressive dogma. In a particular scene, we can see the full extent of Lanthimos' commentary on the role truth plays in relationships.
If this woman dies, do you think you'll manage on your own, or will you get involved with someone else?
No. I can live alone. She can't. I'm on my own for hours when she's running the hotel. I like sitting in the room. Relaxes me. Calms me. I like it a lot. I can definitely live on my own.
Be quiet.
Take it. Shoot her.
is no true dichotomies in life. Whilst there are moral laws and general rules which we construct our everyday lives by, this life is full of contradictions. The language of the characters reflect this by using stark contrasts.
And as he was fucking me, a thug came into the kitchen and took the steak knives from the second drawer and attacked us, stabbing the knives into our bellies one by one. I woke up terrified.
This reinforces the notion that there are no true binaries in life, as when two ideas are strongly contrasted, such as that of life and death, the insignificance of both is highlighted. How do we live in an absurd world? And how do we find happiness?
Roy, what's wrong?
I had a nightmare. I was with an old man. He put a helmet on me.
It's just a fever. Get some sleep. I don't want you missing school on Monday.
I want you kids to look
Cameron
around
breaks
today.
our options down into two choices. On one side, man is hopeful in spite of the absurdity. Instinctively, we don't want to die. We long for existence, and it's biologically ingrained into our DNA. Camus terms this illusion, where the body shrinks from annihilation.
Had we caught it sooner... Well, hindsight is 20/20, Roy. What's important is that we move quickly.
I'm not ready to die.
You're not going to.
Hey, thanks for the carpet, Roy.
Hey, Roy, you pull those Persian off-white shags for the clearance sale?
Whoa. Shit! Oh, what the hell? Whoa, where am I?
55 years. Not bad, Morty. You kind of wasted your 30s, though, with that whole bird-watching phase.
Hope is eluding and avoiding the primary meaninglessness of existence. This is symbolized in the hotel. In this dark world, relationships are seen as the only form of purpose in man's life. It is the reason why individuals go onto the field and shoot loners. It is the meaning of life. Without a relationship, it is essentially death. Suicide, of course, is an option which similarly avoids the reality of life. Camus recognizes that absurdity as our confrontation with the lack of purpose we have, but wants to ask whether we need a reason to live in order to live. He wants to ask whether we can live with this feeling of absurdity. So, if suicide is simply another escape, it is symbolized in the woods. The woods, at first, is seemingly a positive escape from the torturous hotel, but both worlds ultimately hold the same fate. They are simply escapes, and promise to bring no peace or happiness. Literal suicide is frighteningly real. With the biscuit woman's suicide, her guttural cries darkly poke at the fact that the act itself isn't even an option to escape the banalities of life. Camus proposes a third option, that of embracing the absurdity of life and living regardless. Life is absurd and meaningless, but we should take it as a challenge. This man is the free, absurd man. The ideal absurd man, to Camus, bears these three traits. He revolts against the struggle, he is free to behave as he wishes, and he lives a life dominated by his passions and experiences. I want to demonstrate that David does not fall into this category. By the end of the film, he hasn't progressed enough to release himself from the chains of either world.
What happened to your mouth?
I can't speak. He was given the red kiss.
What's the red kiss?
We slashed his lips with a razor and the lips of another loner, and we forced them to kiss each other.
In Waiting for Godot, Vladimir and Estragon, emblematic of man's search for meaning. Instead of taking charge of their lives, accepting the banality of it and continuing, they eagerly wait for meaning.
What's wrong with you?
Nothing.
I'm going.
So am I.
Was I long asleep?
I don't know.
Where shall we go?
Not far.
Oh, yes. Let's go far away from here.
We can't.
Their waiting is symbolic of our wait, or hope that something good will come along. However, ironically, this waiting imposes on them a lack of taking direction in their lives. Thus, they fail to act at the beginning and end of the play.
We'll hang ourselves tomorrow. Unless Godot comes.
And if he comes?
We'll be saved.
The cyclical nature of their actions and the repetitive dialogue indicates that the characters have not changed. Their hope is a figure to give them guidance, and it is this very hope which Camus criticises. Beckett also critiques uniformity and conformity through his character Lucky. Lucky does not speak the entire play until this one scene where he opens his mouth and speaks what is at first assumed to be absurd lyrical nonsense. However, when analysing the speech closely, we can determine that Lucky is essentially criticising man's reverence to a god or a godlike figure which is meant to provide them with some sort of comfort.
Given the existence as uttered forth in the public works of Puncher and Watman of a personal god, qua, 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 with white beard, qua, 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 outside time, without extension, who from the heights of divine apathia, divine athambia, divine aphasia, loves us dearly, with some exceptions, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, and suffers like the divine Miranda with those who, for reasons unknown, but time will tell, are plunged in torment, plunged in fire, whose fire flames, if that continues, and who can doubt it, will fire the firmament, that is to say, blast hell to heaven. So blue, still, and calm. So calm with a calm which, even though intermittent, is better than nothing, but not so fast.
Because we've no rights anymore.
You'd make me laugh if it wasn't prohibited.
We've lost our rights.
We got rid of them.
We're not tied. We're not. I hear nothing.
All right.
Gave me a fright.
I thought it was he.
Who?
Godot.
The wind and the rain.
I want to analyse the final scenes of the film and talk about why David fails as an absurd hero. His problem throughout the film is his attachment to the idea of sight and vision.
I'm really sorry.
Does he wear glasses or contact lenses?
Glasses.
He is too attached to the rules of the dystopian universe and fails to free himself from the black and white world which he lives in. This is seen with his final act, where he considers blinding himself in order to fit in. The ending shot is powerful through its ambiguity. We don't know for certain whether David attempted to blind himself or not, but his mere consideration of the act, to me, proves that he has chosen to live without freedom. The irony of blinding yourself for the sake of freedom harks back to the idea that the world cannot offer you any meaning, and you are only free when you are no longer clinging to hopes offered by outside influences. The Lobster is a world full of binaries and contradiction, which are the result of an attempt to rationalize our existence.
Can I give you a kiss?
I can't thank you enough for all the activities and games and for keeping me company, but you know we can't do that anymore. Would you like to play another round of Touch, Guess, Think, Win?
No.
The film warns us of the danger in attempting to create meaning when life's absurdities can often not be explained. It paints a picture of a harsh, dystopian world which exists in a paradox, that when we attempt to understand nature through rationality, we ultimately deny our own nature and existence as human beings.